Coach James Corbett. Today I am talking to Mr. Simon Worth I don't know if you have a company name, or is it just
yeah, worth talking.
Worth talking, okay. The subject today we're going to talk about tips for training for men over 50. Simon is an individual of a certain age, and he's just started training with me for a few weeks now. And what we wanted to do was discuss his experience so far. I'm going to go through, I've got a list of tips for men training over 50, and me and Simon are just going to come back and forth, and we're going to talk through everything, kind of get his thoughts and on how he's experienced those things so far, and then hopefully give you guys some useful information and stuff you can implement in your own training. Tell us what you've been doing so far, Simon.
Yeah, so so I think we started working together probably about a month or so ago, maybe just more than that, and so we had a good sort of chat about my my recent sort of past, how much training I have, or probably more accurately, haven't been doing, and then we met 2 or 3 times down at the gym in Clydebank, so you could take me through the technique for the exercises that you were going to include in the program, and that actually was a fantastic help doing that. Just giving some pointers on how to set up, engaging your core, all that kind of stuff. That was all really helpful. So that was really good in helping me then feel confident when I went into my own gym, that I had a much better sense of what I was meant to be doing.
Good.
And then
so what? Sorry.
I was just going to say, and then you've got this great little app that you work with clients on, where you upload the program. So that's been really helpful, that I can just open the app when I go to the gym, get the list of exercises that I need to do, and the weights, repetitions, all that kind of information, and I can update it as I'm doing it. Yes, all that's been super helpful.
So the app that I use is called Turnkey Coach. That was the brainchild of my old coach, Matt Reynolds, who I worked with Matt for 1.5 years. He was my coach. He was absolutely fantastic. I now use his software. I was one of the first 20 people or 20 people to beta test it, and I've used it ever since because it's absolutely fantastic. It's I won't get into it too much, but it's really good in terms of delivering a professional, slick service to my clients that gives them everything they need to do. They've got little demo videos, so if it's a new exercise and I haven't taught them something in the gym, there's a small demo exercise, and then from that point on I can kind of coach them through it, and they get 75-80% of the way correct, and then I can just coach them a little bit with the feedback video functionality on there, and that's all great. Okay, so it's not an advert for Turnkey Coach, but it is great. Right, so what we want to talk about today is we'll go over some training tips for men over 50, whether this is probably aimed at people who've either never been to the gym before or haven't been to the gym for a long time. So similar people who are kind of in a similar situation to yourself, who I think in our kind of interview before, you said you lifted some weights when you were younger, playing rugby and stuff, but you hadn't really done much since you'd stopped playing rugby. So we'll talk about kind of guys in your situation, okay? And the first tip I've got for you, and you've probably experienced this yourself, is we're going to start very easy, and we're going to work out 3 times a week, all right? So, and those are going to be full body workouts. So we don't need to, the last thing a guy your age needs is to go on to a 5-day, 6-day body parts, bodybuilding split. You don't need that. It's overkill. In fact, it's not even that it's overkill, it's that it's incredibly ineffective because you're just not strong enough to start building, thinking of your body in different parts. We need to stimulate your whole body every session that you come in the gym, just because, I mean, I think your first session with me, I think you maybe squatted 40 kilograms.
Yeah.
So like, that was with good form and it was reasonably challenging, but imagine how, if you can only squat 40 kilograms, and that's using every muscle in your body, like how much are you going to be able to like doing a leg extension or a hamstring curl? Not very much. So you're not, the magnitude of the stimulus that you're going to get in terms of improving your muscle strength, improving your metabolic health through all those things isn't going to be very high. So we need to make sure, especially when you start, 3 days, full body, is kind of as best as you can. And we'll maybe get into, that's maybe something we'll get into later, is the kind of the current situation of the gym that you're going to and the inadequacies of most gyms. But you got to start out 3 days a week, full body, and stimulate the whole body to get stronger. And the magnitude of that stimulus is very much correlated to how much weight you can lift. So you got to use the lifts or select the lifts that you can lift the most weight on. What would you find your experience with that is so far?
Yeah, it's been really good. I'd say the first session that I did, I almost went into shock. You know, it was sort of like, haven't done this for a long time, and my body was like, "What the hell are you doing to me?" You know, and so it was good to get that first one done. And actually, I found that as the weeks have gone on, it's working really well, just focusing on that 3 times. And I think we can all be guilty of that. Yeah, I haven't done anything for sort of 20 odd years, and then all of a sudden expect to go back into a professional kind of, athlete routine. And so I think, that starting.
I think I think your body went into shock, because I think on your first week we only did 2 sessions.
Yes, that's
and
right.
Just because you're so unadapted to what you were doing, that we needed to actually, that first week 2 sessions was fine, just to give yourself. So that's why I'm talking about, like, start easy and then build yourself up into it. And I think we also had a conversation about I think you came in and saw me on Monday, and then you were meant to come back and see me on Thursday or Friday maybe. And on Wednesday you messaged me saying, "James, I am absolutely done." I don't know if you want to tell people a bit about what happened, the kind of conversation we had then.
Yeah, no, it was really interesting actually. I mean, so I guess the sort of 2 or 3 years before you and I started working together, I'd been struggling with initially COVID and then long COVID, and that had affected how much I'd been able to do, physically, exercise wise. So I really hadn't done a huge amount, if anything, in the last 3 years other than walking. So yeah, that first session back was pretty dramatic. And when I got in touch with you, what was actually really helpful was you explained a little to me about what was happening to my body, gave me a concoction I could drink to help sort of put back in the sort of salts and sugars into my blood. And I think it was something to do with diluting. I think I'd almost gone into panic mode when I got back to the car after the training session.
Yeah, down all the water.
Yeah. And so that was good. That was really helpful. And I think that's the thing. It's if you haven't done anything for a long time, just going to the gym once a week will be a big kind of shock to the system, and that's okay. So I think it's just almost preparing yourself that actually this is going to be painful. It's going to be a bit of a shock to the system, but that's okay. You just kind of trust the process and go with it. And I think we did the Monday and the Friday, I think, in that first week. And actually I felt a lot better the second session than I did the first.
Yeah, because I think you were very much of the impression I got from when you messaged me was that you didn't want to go for, like, you thought it was going to be too much again. And what did I say to kind of get you round, to convince you that okay, this might be all right?
Yeah, I think you kind of explained what was going on in my body, which was really helpful. And I think the 3 years previous had really sapped a lot of confidence from me. And so I think my kind of gut or instinctive reaction was, oh my God, I've done too much. I can't cope with this. You know, I can't cope with exercising. And actually what you did was just all very matter of fact. This is what's happening. This is what's, you know, going on in your body, your blood, and you know, all that kind of thing. And that really helped me just to, okay, take that step back and be a bit more rational about it. You know, not to say I was being irrational, but I think I had a panic sort of moment, thinking, oh, this, you know, I'm not ready for this. But I think it was just get that first one done, get my head around it, let my body get used to doing something again, and that's the other thing I think for anyone in their 50s, or even anyone that hasn't exercised for a period of time. You know, you can't expect to be where you were when you're in your 20s, you know, it was a bit of a shock to the system, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, you know.
That is like a lot of men in their 50s still think they're 25.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
They go and try and do something they could do when they're 25, and then the reality sets in that, oh wait, maybe I can't.
Yeah.
But being stronger helps you feel. You might be, because you've just turned 50 recently, or 50.
Yeah. 51. So I'll be 52
yeah.
in about 5 months' time. So
Oh.
yeah, and I think, like you say, whether it's drinking or whether it's going to the gym, you can't do the things that you used to do. All these things have a bigger effect on you.
Well, hopefully, by the time you're 52, you feel like you're 42.
Yeah.
And I think if you were to give that deal to anyone, I think they'd probably take it. You want to feel 10 years younger than you actually are.
Yeah.
Strength is the way to go for it. Okay, so start off easy. Tip number 2. Anyone that's familiar with me will know that I follow starting strength method of the novice linear progression. Now, ideally, in an ideal world, I would run everyone through that till it was an appropriate time to make a change based on my experience, their limitations, mobility, all that kind of stuff. With you, we've had to make modifications pretty much straight off the bat due to a mixture of things. One, it being January time and the gym's been very, very busy. So I've had to give you like options. If you can't go on a specific thing or perform a specific exercise, okay, here's a list of things we can do otherwise. But then also we had to use a safety bar instead of a straight bar, just because getting a straight bar on your back was just like, you are working on that, but we'll come to that later. If you're over 50, your novice linear progression is going to be a lot shorter than you think it is. This process, so it's a novice linear progression. So basically, just if you're new to lifting weights, we progress your weights linearly until it's appropriate to make a change to do otherwise. The reason we do that is we want to make sure you're getting as strong as you can, as quickly as you can, with the least amount of wasted effort. Like, so we keep things simple, we keep things straightforward, and we keep things challenging. So a lot of people think that complex is hard, and maybe in calculus or like geometry, yes, complex formulas are hard, but in terms of physical training, actually, if you keep things simple and make them challenging, that's the easiest way for you to gain strength and gain confidence in your own ability to do things. So I know we've not had that long to go through your LP, but and we've had to modify things. We've had to, like, the gym that you go to doesn't have a safety bar, so you only get to squat when you come and see me. Have you got any sense of how that's working yet, or is that maybe something we need to wait and see a little bit more?
Yeah, no, I'd say I have. I think as my body's got used to doing the movements again, I think I have noticed, um, feeling better doing those movements. And I think that absolutely one of the key advantages of working with yourself has been that when I come up against those obstacles, like okay, I can't get my hands back to put my hands on a squat bar. So having that safety bar was great. But in the gym that I go to, a local authority gym, they don't have one of those. So being able to come up, help me then. What can I do if I can't do a squat with a safety bar? What's an alternative? What's another way of doing it? And yeah, we've done goblet squats, which has been, I mean, fantastic actually as well. I've really noticed that in my legs. So that's been really good. So I think yeah, that's the key thing is um, adapting. What you can and can't do. The other thing I've noticed being a local authority gym doesn't seem to matter what time of day I go. It's absolutely rammed. So sometimes again, you've either got to accept sort of waiting around for a bit, or you go and use something else. So having a little, a few different ideas of different exercises that I can do, and still sort of keep to the program. That's the other advantage of the app that you use, is that I can actually edit or change or add an exercise, put some notes on, and say what I've had to do or been able to do.
Okay, that's fine. Right, so just your LP is going to be short. I mean, some people might not even know what your novice linear progression is. I might put a video. I'll put a video in the description, kind of go down and you can have a look and see what the NLP actually is. I won't go into too depth on it here. Okay, so right, tip number 3. So we're doing all this stuff in the gym. We're lifting weights. Weights are getting heavier every time we go in, and then but we only actually spend maybe like 3.5 hours total a week in the gym. Everything, the program is just not just what you do in the gym, it's what you do outside of the gym as well. Okay, so sleep. Talking about sleep is just, if sleep was a performance enhancing drug, it would be banned. Okay, sleep is the human superpower. We are the only we're really the only we're one of a few animals that really prioritizes sleep. Because if you think about it in terms of a evolutionary uh, sense, being unconscious for 8 hours a day is not the most safe environment to be in. So means sleep has got to be pretty important in terms of our brain development, our recovery from from the stress, from the dealing with injuries, the dealing with like adapting to the stress of our environment. So to be vulnerable for 8 hours a day and pretty much unconscious, it's got to be pretty good for you. The upside has got to be worth the. Otherwise, evolution would have weeded it out. Like a lot of animals don't sleep for 8 hours a day, and they don't sleep continuously. They like kind of almost do like power naps, or they'll sleep whenever they can, kind of situation. So what's your experience? Are you sleeping better now, or have you started to think about that more?
Yeah, and that's an interesting one because yeah, I've struggled with sleep probably my whole life. Actually, I've really struggled getting good night's sleep. But as soon as my head hits the pillow, my brain goes into hyperdrive. So I've found that a struggle over the years. Um, I would say that I'm probably having a couple of nights a week much better sleep since I've been training, and so whether that's because I'm a bit more physically tired, um, I'm not sure. I also started taking some magnesium, I think, which we spoke about, um, and yeah, so I think that's slowly getting better. But yeah, I think it's such a massive impact. I think in terms of how you feel energy wise, your brain, your cognitive function, that sort of thing. So it does make a massive difference if you can get a decent night's sleep.
Yeah, I was listening, and I don't know if this is true or not, but I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about sleep, and they were saying that sleeping less than 4 hours a day or 4 hours a night has the same effect as, like, I can't remember what it was, like it was like a grade 1 traumatic brain injury or something along like, so like denying yourself of a good night's sleep is effectively like you're getting a small, in terms of like the neurochemistry in your brain, it's getting you the same effect as having a small concussion.
Yeah, and then, do you know that's interesting because I was actually just thinking as you were talking that actually when I've had those kind of really poor nights where it's like 3 or 4 hours sleep, it is literally like like coming off the pitch having played rugby and taking a bit of a knock to the head. You just
feel your brain feels fuzzy and
yeah.
So like whether that's like you got to be careful with podcasts nowadays because there's so much information out there that sometimes it's going to be wrong. Some people get things wrong, but just even that as even if that's only 50% true, it still demonstrates the value of a good night's sleep. If you get 8 hours a night every night consistently for a month, you'll feel like a different person by the end of it. So
I did try this 3-2-1 thing. I try not to eat 3 hours before bed. I try not to drink 2 hours before bed, and I try not to go on my phone an hour before bed. Some days I'm better at that than others, but actually it does make a difference.
You don't go from not being able to swim to being Michael Phelps overnight. I mean, so like it's or you don't go from not being able to drive a car to being Michael Schumacher overnight. Well, seems to be a load of Michaels that are the best at things. So had you heard of that 3-2-1 thing before I kind of mentioned it to you?
Yeah, only because I've struggled with sleep for so long. It's something that I have read a number of books on, and there's so much stuff there about creating the right environment, the right temperature, all that kind of thing. There's so many different things you can do, and it's funny because I think a lot of people that can't sleep generally have a partner that can sleep really easily, and my partner will literally be on her phone till about a second before she puts the light out. Heaven the pillow, she's gone, and so I think for some people it's not a problem at all, in which case you don't need to worry about any of these things. But I think for those of us that can struggle, actually having a bit of a routine or a bit of a doing everything you can to create the right environment for a good night's sleep, it is helpful, definitely.
Okay, so sleep. So next tip. Shoulder mobility. So this is probably one that's very, very pertinent to people in your demographic, Simon. So I can usually guess whether someone's going to be able to get in the bar on their back, but sometimes you're just way off. So when you came in for your first session with me, I was like, okay, let's see if we can get the bar on your back. And we tried various things, got you to stretch, but it just wasn't happening that day. Just like we could only get the bar down to kind of like the top of your neck or the back of your head. And you were just like, no matter how wide we put it out, no matter how, like, wherever we put your arms, are just like, so. While we are working on that, so every workout you've got, I've put in like what we call the Paul Horn stretch. So whether Paul came up with it or not, but he's certainly the one that has popularized that stretch. I think he was the first person to kind of do a YouTube video on it that I saw anyway. I just call it the horn stretch. Whether people want to argue with me about that or not, I don't care. The modification we've made for you is when you squat with me and you come to the gym, and you'll try and come every so often. I know it's like just geographically it's a bit of a nightmare. We'll use a safety bar. Unfortunately, most gyms are run by people who don't actually know what like training looks like, and they don't know what equipment is needed to perform effective hard training. So they just go to a gym equipment company, and the salesman just tells them what to have, and they'll try and, I don't know, maximize the number of machines in their square footage or something like that. There'll be, and the gym will look beautiful and it'll be all, but it's not a place that's actually going to get some effective training done. So what's your thoughts on the safety bar? Are you
yeah, love the safety bar. It makes such a difference, you know. I mean, it's I guess, like a lot of people, I've spent an awful lot of time behind my desk at work and behind the wheel of a car. And over that time, I guess I just haven't moved an awful lot. You're leaning forward, hunched forward, rounded forward, and I just physically couldn't get myself into the right position to do a back squat. And so the safety bar is fantastic, because then I feel like I'm doing the exercise properly. The bar's in the right place. It's comfortable from that point of view. And so that was a real game changer and a real disappointment when I then went to my own gym. They didn't have one. But again, we've been able to adapt it, you know, and find something that does work, you know, like with the goblet squats and things like that.
So there's a few points I would like to make. So, like, with that, like you were just on. So there's like kind of a few buckets of categories of people that I would put them in. I would put you in the bucket of, I would like to get you through a back squat with a straight bar, but I think the chances of it happening are pretty low. Okay, it'll take a long time of you being very consistent with your stretching to get there. There are a group of people, and those are people just like, I would rather you were squatting with a safety bar than you were not squatting at all, or doing a goblet squat or something. Just get, like, the problem with a goblet squat is you're limited by how much you can actually hold, like a dumbbell or a kettlebell in front of you. So you're limited by the strength in your arms more than by the strength of your legs. So what you end up having to do is go really high reps so we can challenge the legs. And then what happens is you get away from a strength stimulus to more of a muscular endurance stimulus. Because when we start getting up to like 15, 20 reps, you can get stronger in that rep range, but it's always going to be more of a muscular endurance type, which is fine. Like, that's good. Like, it's doing that is better than not squatting at all. But if we want to be in that 4 to 8 rep range, probably in the lower end, 4 or 5 reps, we need something where the legs are going to be the limiting factor, and the safety bar is really, really good for that. So that would be bucket number 1. Bucket number 2 would be people who can get in a high bar position. So that, like, you were pretty far away from even getting to a high bar position, where we have the bar kind of a bit higher up on the back. That creates a more vertical torso angle when you're squatting, which is kind of what happens when you have the safety bar, because it is more of a high bar style squat than a low bar style squat. And those people, they may eventually get to a low bar style squat, which is what we want. We want to be more in dominant movement, so that we can add more muscle mass to the movement. But I would rather they were squatting with a high bar than not squatting at all. And obviously that's going to be, you're going to be able to load that more than you can, say, a goblet squat. And then there's going to be the third group of people who are like just getting to a low bar position, but it's a bit uncomfortable. That group of people is, just bear with it for a couple of weeks and it'll feel fine. And I've had that happen to multiple clients before, where it's been like, it seems to be because your shoulders in sternal rotation, they get it like right down their arm. They kind of get a radiating kind of discomfort that goes right down their arm on the outside and sometimes on the inside as well. So those people, I say to them, yes, I know it feels uncomfortable just now, but if you get your, like, in 6 or 7 workouts, you won't even, like, you'll just go under the bar and you'll be like, oh yeah, doesn't hurt anymore. The younger you are, probably the more likely you'll be able to just get on the bar, because you're just supple. Life hasn't beaten you down yet. And then, so that's the kind of 3 buckets of people. You're never going to get there, just squat with a safety bar. You're close, squat, high bar, you're getting there, but it's a bit uncomfortable, just bear with it. So men over 50 may fall into any three of those buckets. I mean, they might just go under the bar and just be fine, but it tends not to be the case. They tend to be in one of those three areas. So that's why we want to have a gym with the appropriate equipment for us to train them. Okay. Right. So talking about squats, most people, well, I haven't taught you how to overhead press yet, mainly because I want to be there. I've not had you overhead press yet. I want to be there when I'm teaching you how to overhead press so that I can make some adjustments, because I have a funny feeling that your shoulder mobility is as much as it's affecting your squat, it probably will affect your overhead press. You won't be able to get the bar back over your mid body. It will be kind of out in front of you and you'll be leaning back. So there is modifications and stuff I can make to open up your shoulders. And actually, those modifications might help get you towards more of a with a straight bar. So that's my gut instinct with that. Okay. Right. So that was tip number 4. Tip number 5, protein. How are you getting on with protein?
Well, I mean, one of the good things is I love meat, so I was quite pleased when you said I do eat a lot of protein. So that was good. No, I think generally pretty well. So a lot of mornings I'll have 2 or 3 eggs for breakfast. I generally like chicken or turkey or for lunch. Most evening meals I'll have meat. We do have a couple of meals a week, 2 or 3 meals a week, meat free. I mean, I do miss them. I do miss the meat. So on those days, I think it's about making sure at lunchtime I've eaten a bit more. But actually, no, I was pretty surprised at how much protein. I can't remember off the top of my head how much it was.
I think I was telling you to get like 180 grams a day.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm too far away from that. It's amazing how much you can eat, in terms of to do that, but I'm very happy eating chicken breasts and fish, tuna, cans of tuna. I've been having this week, about 3 days this week. So yeah, I think from that point of view, it's good. A bit more yogurt. I've been eating more Greek yogurt as well. So no, I like that. Nuts. I started eating more nuts as well. Although I've realised with the nuts that I was eating, like 200 grams of nuts, and I was saying to mother, I'm not losing any weight. She's like, no,
because that's like 700 calories. So
yeah, that's well, these taste nice and they're good for you, so I'll just keep eating.
So I would. Nuts are, for me, in terms of when I talk about buckets again. Okay, every like whole food source I try and think of, is it a protein source, carb source, or fat source? Nuts and seeds and things, they do have protein in them, but most of their calories are predominantly coming from fat. So that's why, like, if you were actually to go and like look out, like measure out a portion of walnuts or cashews, like it's that size. It's tiny, and like you eat that amount of cashews in like a handful. So you eat like 10 portions of cashews, and that's how God knows how many calories. So be careful with it. Man, they're really good, healthy source of fats. 100% really good for you. It's just they're very easy to overeat. In terms of the number of calories you're having, you can be thinking you're having your 2,500 calories a day and you're actually eating 3,500 calories. Now, when you're strength training really hard, that actually might not actually be a problem. But if you're trying to lose some weight and you're not tracking your foods and you're having foods that are very calorie dense, then that can be a problem. It also can be useful because you can, if you're very slim and very under muscled, you might need to just like you might only need to eat, you might actually focus your foods on ones that are very calorie dense. So like double cream, loads of nuts, like having the odd fast food type thing, like that could actually be useful. So everything's got all, like, food is as much a tool as it is an experience. A wee word on like your kind of meat-free type meals. That seems to be a thing that people do nowadays. Calories matter. So if you're trying to lose weight on a vegan, vegetarian style diet while still maintaining your strength and getting enough protein, that's going to be way harder than if you have a omnivorous. Now I'm not saying you need to go and start being a carnivore only, because that's just got as many problems as being a vegetarian. But plenty of fruits and vegetables, plenty of lean sources of meat, plenty of whole grain carbohydrate sources like rice, potatoes, like root vegetables, all that kind of stuff. So if you have an omnivorous diet, you're going to be able to consume a lot less calories while still maintaining that muscle protein synthesis. So just be wary of that. And I know that the main motivation for people having these kind of meat-free meals is to make some sort of environmental change. There's a misguided effort and a lack of understanding on actually how sustainable meat production is. Meat production is actually one of the most sustainable forms of protein, like in our diet, that we can have. And I'll not get into it right now. That's maybe a subject for a different video. But it's a misguided. It's marketing. It's a process of misinformation that's been put out to the general public. And the reason that people feel better when they start going onto like vegan or vegetarian diets is because quite often they move away from highly processed foods to more whole foods and more natural sources of nutrition. So they stop eating like their microwave curry with chicken in it. They stop eating takeaways from they stop eating McDonald's burgers. They stop doing, but it's just as easy to have a really unhealthy vegetarian diet as it is a really unhealthy omnivorous diet. So that initial shift that people get, and they have a boost in how they feel, and they're getting more fiber and they've got more energy, and they maybe lose a bit of weight. Eventually they'll get bored of eating all that stuff and they'll start eating they're vegetarian, they might like deep fried mozzarella sticks and they'll just go back to the same habits they had before, but with vegetarian food rather than on them like having meat sources. So I'm not saying don't have those meat-free nights, but just be aware of maybe the motivation behind them is just slightly off, and it comes from a good place. It comes from good intentions, 100%. But the effect of what's happening isn't really what's actually happening. And also the fact that this is a bit of a bugbear of mine, but the fact that most of the burden of the behavior change when it comes around climate change is put onto the individual is just absolutely ridiculous.
I agree.
The amount of pollution an individual has, even if you count the whole population, versus companies, airlines, all this different stuff is just minuscule, and it's not even enough to change them. It's not even enough to change anything. But that's a different video.
Yeah, okay. So, I'm on board with that one.
Yeah. So protein. Tip number 5. Number 6, stop drinking. Stop drinking so much, or at least reduce your amount of drinking a lot. How are you getting on with that? I mean, that's the first time I've really actually I don't think I've really even talked to you about alcohol yet.
No. But actually,
what's your thoughts?
Yeah, that's been. It's another thing that I've noticed as I've got older, is that my body doesn't process alcohol as well as it used to. So yeah, like after a rugby match in my 20s, go out, have a skinful, within a day or so you were back up to back to normal again. Whereas what I started finding throughout my 40s was it was starting to take me sort of 3 or 4 days to, if we'd had a bottle of wine each over on one night the weekend, it took me 3 or 4 days to get over that, or a good few pints or whatever. So it was also something that post COVID and long COVID, my body changed a lot with what it could handle. I had a similar sort of thing with dairy, where I wasn't able to manage it quite as like I used to. So I have reduced alcohol down now. So I rarely have more than a pint or two if on a night that I'm drinking, and that would be on a Friday or a Saturday, something like that. And that's something I definitely feel better for. I love my beer, love my wine, but actually I'm enjoying it more by having a smaller amount, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It's especially in British culture, drinking is just it's so embedded into everything. Like, if we're commiserating, we drink. If we're celebrating, we drink. If we're relaxing, we drink. If we're out having a good time, we're drinking. Like, it's just so embedded into it's kind of over the last few months, and I've been chatting back and forth with an alcohol reduction coach called Gillian Brown, who I've done a podcast with previously. You can check that out on the channel. Maybe put a link below. Having a chat with her and the changes that have happened in her life since she sees and the people she has go through her alcohol reduction. I'm not some Puritan who is never going to touch a drop of alcohol again in their life. I mean, like, I had a night out with some friends from university, and I drank. Like, I didn't do it to excess. I didn't do it because I felt pressured in doing it. I did it because I was like, I'm out on a night out. I'm going to have a couple of beers. I think I had 2 beers, and then I went on non-alcoholic drinks after that. Guinness Zero is actually quite, like, there might be some Guinness fans out there who have just turned off right now because I've talked about Guinness Zero. But it was like just drinking a pint of Guinness. It was very similar. And I drink so little nowadays that I really don't miss it at all. And what happens when you don't drink? So you've probably experienced this in yourself. You haven't drank for a wee while, then you go back and you have a drink, and you drink what you would normally drink on a night out, and all of a sudden you're a lot more drunk than you would normally get for that level of alcohol. That's basically because the enzymes that intervening period of you not drinking, the enzymes that usually break down alcohol in your body have down regulated, because they're like, well, we're not needed anymore. There's no alcohol coming in, so their production gets down regulated. So your body gets less efficient at processing the toxins. So the blood stays in your alcohol for a lot longer. So every drink you have is staying in your blood for a little bit longer. So the accumulative effect, you get drunk a lot quicker. So basically, you become a cheap date. That night, like, and what took you 8 pints to get in terms of like a buzz takes you maybe like 3. So you become a cheap date. So there's one, save money on your nights out by not drinking in between. Okay, so right, number 6. So number 7, we'll get back to kind of workouts. The main thing I'm going to focus on with you, and the mindset I want you to have, is I want you to focus on getting stronger. Getting stronger is the first and most important thing to do when you're getting in shape, especially if you're not very strong already. And that was kind of demonstrated to you when you were squatting in your first session with me. You did like 40 kilograms, and you were like, okay, that was pretty tough. That didn't feel as easy as maybe I should have thought it felt. So just wanted to get some of your thoughts on that and what we've done so far with that.
Yeah, I think it was quite a shock to the system actually when started putting weight on. I thought, God, I wasn't expecting that to feel, as heavy as it did. And I think, yeah, we're all guilty of this. Is you remember back with rose-tinted glasses as to what you could lift, for example, when you were training regularly and for a period of time, and a million miles away from that. But actually, I think it's like a lot of things in life. I think it's important just to accept you are where you are. There's no point wasting any energy in wishing it wasn't the case. I am where I am. That's my starting point. Doesn't mean I'll be there, forever, but that's where I'm starting at. And actually, even 2-3 weeks in, I've noticed the difference. In it's almost like you've got to wake the body up a bit. I think. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like is that shock to the system. First of all, it's like, oh bloody hell, what's going on here? And then your body's like, okay, yeah, I know what we're doing now, and it gets back into it. So I'd say I'm finding the movements easier, and it'll be good when I can get back to the gym actually to do it together, to do it in the proper gym with a safety bar and see what sort of progress I've made.
Yep. Are you feeling stronger, like outside of the gym?
Yeah, I would definitely. I would say it was a bit disjointed, the training over Christmas. So probably lost. I probably went 10 days, if I'm honest, without training. I think probably something like that. So I kind of was starting to make some progress. Christmas came along, New Year, and so I've started again. This week I've been twice this week. I'll be going again tomorrow morning. And I would say I do feel strong. Actually, mentally as well, I'd say I feel a bit better for training again. And so whether it's the endorphins or something, is it that
Yeah, yeah.
whether it's to do with that or whether it's because actually I'm starting to feel some benefit from doing what we've done so far.
Okay. Glad to hear it, man. Right. So number 8. Have I talked to you about creatine yet?
We touched on it, yes, and I'm going to order some. So yeah, it'd be good to talk about that actually. Yeah.
Yeah. So creatine is like, if you're not taking it, there's no reason not to, because some people, like I had, oh God, like 10 years ago when I was like, I was unemployed. All I was doing was going to the gym just to give me something to do. And I was taking creatine. And my mum said to me, oh, why are you taking those drugs? And I was like, creatine is not drugs, mum.
Yeah.
I'd be a lot. It's creatine is basically what creatine does. It works in a few different factors. One, it helps you hydrate your muscle cell better. When you take creatine, you saturate all like to the individual level of the muscle cell. It saturates it with more water. So the creatine, as it goes into when your muscle cell takes in more creatine, it will take in more water with it as well. And a better hydrated muscle cell will form better because it will be bigger, and it will recover better because it's more hydration. There's more basically, like, there's more resources within the muscle cell to repair itself. Okay, so that's the way it works. Number 1. Number 2. The fundamental unit of energy in the human body is ATP, adenosine triphosphate. Now, how creatine is stored in your body is in a substance called creatine phosphate. So when your body does something that requires energy, you break down an ATP molecule, so an adenosine triphosphate, into an adenosine diphosphate. So basically, a phosphate molecule breaks off, that releases energy that is used to move your arm, push your weight, run. Okay. And if you have more creatine phosphate in your body, if you're saturated with it, the process of that ATP turning back to ATP to be used again is for a start, the reservoir is bigger.
Yeah.
Okay, so your ATP reservoir may only last for like 7 to 8 seconds, because it's a very high force output mechanism. That may go from 7 or 8 seconds to 10 or 12 or maybe even 15 seconds. So when you're doing a heavy set of squats, that could be the difference between getting 4 reps and getting 5 reps.
Right.
So, and that's 20% difference in the stimulus that you're delivering to your body. So imagine you could do 20% more work every week. How much that would get you through the year. So if you can do an extra rep on every set or every workout, or be an extra rep away from failure in terms of your strength production, because with strength training, we don't want to get too close to failure because bar speed goes down, but that's a whole different video. But if you can be higher force output for a longer time, you get a better stimulus from your body. So it makes your training more effective. So hydration makes your training more effective. And then the thirdly is kind of linked to the hydration as well. And I did mention this a little bit, but if your muscle cells are more hydrated, they're actually bigger. Therefore, the leverages of like from the attachment to the origin to the attachment of the muscle for just like your pec, for example, if your pec's further out, you actually get a better leverage. And for a 10% increase in muscle size, you may get a exponential increase in actually how much weight you can lift. So that's the 3 mechanisms that creatine works under. All you've got to do is find some creatine monohydrate powder. There'll be loads of different fat. Like, have you even seen them coming in like gummies now? With yeah, and okay, like fair enough, but they're just turning a really cheap, inexpensive product into an expensive product by putting more processing into it. Have it in a hot drink. So I usually just have mine in my cup of tea in the morning. So I have a cup of tea with it, drink that while I'm doing my video reviews for my clients in the morning, and then I'll have another like normal cup of tea after that. Okay. The reason I put it in a hot drink is because it dissolves better. I always find if I put it in like cold water or cold juice or something, there's always a little bit of sediment at the bottom of it, and obviously that's not getting into me because it's at the bottom of the cup. Okay, so hot water. Some people may find they get a little bit of gastric distress from it. So for those people, I'd recommend 2 strategies. One, taper it up very slowly. So maybe start with like half portion and try that for a few weeks until your gut gets used to it. And then if that feels okay, start to add, and we probably want about 5 grams a day for just a normal person. For me, I take probably 7 or 8 grams a day just because I'm 120 kilos. So like 265 pounds. So like 18 and a half stone. So I've just got more muscle mass. So I just need more. Like the bigger you are, the more protein you need, the more creatine you need. So, if that doesn't work, maybe it's just you just like can't take it. So, which is unfortunate because it could be really good for your training, but sometimes we're shit out of luck. That's the way life works sometimes. But if I would try and taper it up as you go through till you get to that 5 grams. So try even just like half a scoop every second day for 3 or 4 weeks. Let your body get used to it, and then slowly taper it up as you go through. And then you don't have to come off it at any point. People will say you have to like take it for 6 weeks and then come off it for 2 weeks. I think that's hangover from like PED use, where you would like go on a cycle of Anavar or testosterone or like whatever your drug is, and then you'd have to come off it for a couple of weeks, let your body desensitize to it or resensitize, and then start taking it again. You don't have to do that with creatine because it's not hormonal. It's not a performance. Well, it is a performance enhancer, but it's not a drug. It's just something that occurs naturally in your body. So focusing on creatine. Right. So that's tip number 8. Tip number 9 excuse me, I'm doing my referee signals. Is what we've talked about recently is get membership to a good gym.
Mm-hmm.
The effectiveness of your training is very much dependent on a number of factors. But one of them is the equipment that you have available in order to train effectively. And I would like to get your thoughts on that, what you're thinking about your current situation, and if that would help.
I'd say that's a really big one, actually, because the difference between being able to train at your gym and have the right equipment there makes an enormous difference. I go to a local authority gym. It doesn't have the same equipment as in your one, and so everything feels like a compromise, if that makes sense. You know, it doesn't feel like I'm training as well. It feels like I'm making do. You know, so I over time I will definitely look for somewhere else to train. You know, in the short term, it will have to be where it is because of my transport situation. But so better to do that than nothing. And then as soon as I can, I will absolutely move to a more appropriate gym that has the right equipment.
And if you're really serious about this, I say if there's no good gyms around you, the only real way to get what you need is to have a gym of your own, to have a home gym. So I am a bit of an evangelist for home gyms. I've got one, like, although it doesn't really get used much in the winter because it's freezing. It doesn't have any heating in it, but I'm hoping to rectify that. I want to build a whole new facility at the farm that I live on, to have clients come there to shoot content, to have all sorts of things going on there. So that's the plan there. But the only real way you can truly control your whole training environment is to have your own home gym, because you'll know that you've got everything you need when you need it. You won't have to wait in any queues. You won't have to wait in any. You'll have all the equipment because you've bought it. Now, it can be a very expensive outlay, and what you might find is this is something that if there's any photographers watching, you have a bout of GAS, which is gear acquisition syndrome, where you always just want the next. Photographers always want the next lens. Oh, I need to get a lens for that because I don't have one to do that type of shot. Like the same thing happens with home gyms and garage gyms. So be prepared for that.
Yes.
But I don't know. Have you got a space that have you thought? Is this the first time you've thought about it, or?
Yeah, good. We've got a sort of small single garage, so like most people, it's probably 99% full of crap that you don't need. So I could absolutely create space, and put a proper sort of squat rack in there, which I think would make the biggest difference, and a bench, that would be the thing. But yeah, because like you say, so much time is spent for me going to the local authority gym, just waiting around trying to get onto something, and then if you haven't got the time to do that, then it's okay, well, what else can I do? So it's hard to get consistency and see if you're making progress or not, because you're not doing the same things one day to the next.
What would be good to if you ever get that set up is to come and show people what a home gym looks like, and how little space you actually need to get it all kind of set up. Because a single car garage is perfect for training for one person. In fact, you probably train two people in there. So you and your partner could train at the same time. But yeah, so that would be a future kind of thing we could do. But yeah, that's everything for today, I think. I know we're both busy men and we've both got places to be, so we'll wrap it up there. Thanks for chatting to me today, Simon. Hopefully everyone's got some useful information out of that. Hopefully you got some useful information out of it.
Yeah, really good. Thanks.
I'll put this up on YouTube, and if they liked it, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and I'll start sharing everything on the socials and all that. Okay? Right. Anyway, thank you very much, Simon, and I'll speak to you later.
Thank you.